beautiful day on the water as our teams continue to push on to the Ocean Life Park, to Geneva and our grand finale. Welcome to the Ocean Race Show. We always knew that the winds of the Mediterranean were going to be incredibly challenging for our teams to try and decipher, and that's why over the last 24, 48 hours we've seen both the VO65s and the IMOCAs splitting wildly on their routes to the Balearic Islands and onwards to Geneva. So let's check in with both fleets and try and work out what's happening. While racing was intense for the leaders, Team Holcim-PRB, just living on board near the Algerian coast was a struggle in the rough seas.
De faire quoi, Bochi? C'est de faire quoi?
Juste vivre. Pas péter le cul contre la cloison. Oh, oh.
3, 2, 1.
Oh.
Quoi?
T'as mis una Nutella.
J'ai mis où quoi? La bouteille?
Nutella.
Le Nutella, il n'y en a plus, mec, ils ont tout bouffé, les bâtards. Hein. Ouais. J'en ai marre, moi.
By the morning, now heading back to the group, the crew were in light winds, going very slowly.
Allez.
Hein? Le vent, je le vois un peu là-bas. Bah. Va chercher le vent, petit bateau. On a un peu tendu le voile.
Hein?
On a un peu tendu le voile pour la péter.
Ouais, je suis d'accord, mais...
Ouais, on est en face d'Hélicon.
Ah.
Tour du monde.
Putain, c'était long ces tours de monde, hein, yo-yo?
Putain, on a lâché.
Wow, quand même.
Et les
hein.
mers du Sud, mon gars, là, à
Ah.
côté de l'Algérie, là.
Ah ouais.
C'était quelque chose. Hein.
Ah oui, putain.
C'est passé quoi depuis l'Algérie?
Ça allait super vite après, très content. Bon, la stratégie aussi au final. On était un peu stressés parce qu'il y avait un énorme écart latéral, mais bon, on a fait notre truc pour essayer de faire un petit break. Je pense qu'on l'a fait, mais bon, après, je sais pas si ça va rester longtemps, quoi. En tout cas, c'était bien d'essayer. Et là, on a un petit avantage. Ce serait bien de choper le thermique un peu avant.
When the three IMOCAs came together near the Balearic Islands, Team Holcim-PRB was still leading, sailing downwind 20 miles ahead of Bioterm and Team Militia. The navigation was all about playing the sea breeze and exploiting any local effects to the wind, with multiple jibes taking the boats close inshore. The boats behind made some gains, and Paul Mayer was keen to keep catching up.
I've seen Jack, so we are passing like this, so I think it's good for us. We have some wind now, but not expected. And soon we'll be putting our kite, and then we'll fly.
25 nœuds comme ça, 25 nœuds comme ça, 25 nœuds comme ça. Fallait pas empanner plus tard, je pense, Marie. Hein.
Ouais, je pense.
Ils ont pas de mal à dire. Et voilà, c'est beau. Regarde, c'est bel empannage devant les falaises d'Ibiza.
Les femmes,
Ouais,
ils suivent.
ouais, ils ont empanné un peu plus tard. Hein.
C'est la tactique qu'il faut lever, ça. Tu les suives jusqu'à 50 000 à arriver, et après il va arriver.
5000 même, je pense, plutôt. Pas 50.
Je les vois un message là.
Faut pas être en tête à 50 000, faut être en tête à l'arrivée.
Into the night, Team Holcim-PRB had lost a little more of their lead, with the boats behind closing further. But it was very tricky for everyone to feel confident on the wind forecast, with thermal winds building when hot and fickle winds over the night.
We are quite compact. We have Bioterm not far away, like 2 or 3 miles. On Holcim is 10 miles ahead of us, but we just jibe, so now we are going to split. And we have two first, no, not the two first, but we have 2 Volvo 65 just behind us, which is also good, even if we are not the same boat, but at least it's good to have some friends to play and to look at the position report to try to understand where is the best wind.
At the moment, it's Team Holcim-PRB who are in the best wind, sailing along the coast with the other Amoccas following their path. It will make it easier for Benjamin Schwartz to stay in front if the others follow, but the team won't need to be separated by much to park up and potentially lose the wind. But there is still the question for our Amocca fleet as to who will be lifting that overall trophy by the time they get here to the grand finale, because there is the process of redress. 11th Hour Racing Team asking the jury for compensation to their score because of that incident with Guyot Environment Team Europe back in The Hague. Now, for redress, protest, juries, it all feels a little bit strange to a lot of people. So I asked a race legend as to whether something like this was usual or even common in sailing.
Yeah, in 2008 we basically hit the bottom at the start in Qingdao, and that area was it was not on the chart. So we actually put redress in because we thought that the committee made a mistake over there. They should have known that there was a shallow, and so we thought that they had put it in an unsafe place. So it was a mistake of the race committee. So we asked redress by having doing it our own fault, because it was not chartered, but the race committee should have known that. So that's why we asked redress, and we didn't get it. But it's just one of these things what you try in the sailing sport. If you think you get like a penalty without it being your own fault, then you can ask for redress.
Yeah, I mean, because there's three things, isn't there? There's either you can get redress for helping a competitor in distress, and we've seen that before in the ocean race and in many other races as well. You get redress if the race committee admitted or did an error, which is for you, and then you also get redress if somebody causes injury or damage to your boat and they were in wrong. And I guess that's what's happening here with the 11th Hour Racing Team.
Just to come back, I had actually another case where we actually got redress, and that was with Winston when we went back to get one of the competitors who broken their rudder, and we actually got 20 hours redress. So that's a substantial amount because we went back, and then La Poste, another competitor, was earlier at the boat, but we asked for redress and we got it because. It's of course safety is one of the first things, but so it is working.
So redress it's not uncommon. It's this is something that we've seen before.
No, it's not uncommon at all, and but of course it's a tough thing for the international jury. They have to. It's not only that they're looking at that case, but they have to look as well. Of course, don't we give somebody an advantage and the others get a disadvantage? So it's really a tough one for them, and the same in this case for 11th Hour. It will be a hard thing to solve for the international jury because they're doing their job, and they have to be fair for everybody, the outcome.
And how do you prepare for it? As a sailor, we see you guys on the water racing really hard, but going into the room and kind of switching into lawyers or something. What's that process like for you?
Yeah, you have to build a case, and like what you normally do, you're first the sailors sitting together, but then what you do as well. Most of the teams have a rules advisor he or she is an international judge. So then you just look at all the facts what you can put together to build your case. And I think one of the big things, of course, for 11th Hour is without wanting to bring a point forward, but I think in the notice of race, in the sailing instructions, on the last leg, you couldn't have any outside assistance and you couldn't suspend sailing. So that was the only option for them to retire from the leg, because if they would have kept going, then it would have been another case would have been opened, and they would have probably got penalty points and and all that kind of thing. So it's really complicated.
Does it feel strange as a sailor who has done many competitions and spent all your life in the sport? Does it feel strange to have these moments that are still decided by 1, 2, 3, 4 people, very skilled, very experienced, very knowledgeable, but it's not racing on the water? What does that feel like as a competitor?
Well, I don't have anything against it because it's part of the rules where we're sailing under, and that's how we sail. If you not agree with it, then you shouldn't compete. And we just know the international judges doing their best for the fair outcome, and they're doing a fantastic job. that's why one of the reasons I think sailing is still so popular and everything is sorted well. But of course, there's always other people who say, maybe it wasn't what we expected.
Bouwe Bekking, a veteran of the ocean race, giving us some insight as to why the process of protests and redress are not uncommon in the sport of sailing, and certainly not uncommon in the history of this event. And this is the location. This is going to be the room where on the 29th, representatives of all the teams and the international jury are going to come together to discuss whether 11th Hour Racing Team deserve any compensation and how much compensation that might be. And right now on the water, the team of 11th Hour Racing Team are doing everything they can to get to Geneva as soon as possible. The American team have had the wind against them, having to zigzag to make their approach to Gibraltar. But now Charlie Enright and his crew are into the Mediterranean with around 800 miles left to go. 11th Hour Racing Team making steady progress towards Geneva. A little bit of a question as to whether the sailors are going to make it here in time for their redress. I'm joined now by Mark Towell from the team. Before we get to the question about the progress of the boat right now, this is going to be quite important. For you, for the other teams, for the race as well. It's going to have an impact on the scores. How have you been preparing for this redress?
It's a great question. I mean, as a team, we're treating this stopover no different than any other. So the majority of our team's already here on site. The tech guys are taking a few well-deserved days off after their incredible job repairing the boat. And yeah, we're just eagerly awaiting the boat to get in and then the hearing. And from the perspective of preparing for the hearing, we're sort of going about that methodically. There is a process to these redress hearings, and so yeah, there's a fair bit of prep happening in the background and a lot of procedure. So we just need to make sure we're doing everything properly.
Now, obviously, Charlie Enright, the skipper, would represent the boat on the water in the press conferences, things like that. But in the redress room, you get a little bit of leeway. Who is going to represent the team?
So yeah, typically in the redress hearing, if the skipper was on shore, that would typically be the representation. I think with the timing of the hearing and the boat's ETA, it's looking like Charlie will still be on the water. So I'll likely step in, and we'll probably have one or two other representatives from the team. And yeah, in terms of preparation, a lot's happening here in the background. I think Charlie would really like to be there, but he also understands that a part of his role is to get the boat here in time for the import race. And
how much communication, how much conversation have you had with Charlie Racingman? Obviously, if it was a normal race, that would be a little bit limited. Your boat's not racing, it's delivering here. Has he been frantically on the phone with you? Have you been frantically on the phone with him?
We haven't actually spoken on the phone, but there's been a fair bit of WhatsApping going back and forth. I think on board they're treating it very much like a race, and it really is. It's a race against time, and that's the way we've been looking at it. But it is essentially impossible to simulate that same intensity of actually racing other boats, and so particularly when they've had no wind and they've been doing a little bit of motoring, I think the mind wanders, and there's certainly excited to get here.
And for you as a sailor, Bouwe was telling us that, in sailing and in the ocean race, it's not unusual to see protests. It's not unusual to see redress as well. You've been a sailor all your life. I mean, you've been into the protest room dealing with situations like this?
Yeah. Redress in sailing is a very normal thing. It's a part of the process. It's really set up to compensate teams for being involved in situations that were at no fault of their own. And from our perspective, this situation qualifies for that. There is a formal process. There's a jury. You have to go in and sort of present your case. But I guess relative to other sports, maybe that's a little bit unique. But at the same time, it's not often that we have on the water umpiring, and there isn't always mechanisms for dealing with situations like there would be in other sports. And so redress, protest, these things are very normal in sailing. And yeah, I've been in these situations a few times in the past, and it's just a normal thing in our sport.
Mark Towell from 11th Hour Racing Team, along with the rest of his crew, working hard to see if he can make sure that compensation goes the way they would like. But in the VO65 fleet, they don't need to wait for redress. Whoever's going to lift this trophy is going to come down to the action on the water.
It's been a good 24 hours for Viva México. Yesterday we did some calls, some staying further out from shore, and we gained on all the fleet and passed a couple of boats, and then in the afternoon it was just Hollywood sailing downwind in 20-25 knots of breeze, so that was very fun.
Along with Viva Mexico, the bulk of the VO65s continue to hug the Spanish coast, relying on thermal winds in the afternoon to power them through, even if it means suffering during the morning hours. And they will need every help they can get, as out to the east, WindWhisper Racing Team still have an impressive lead. The Polish team have clearly enjoyed the fact that their hard work and savvy navigational know-how has paid off. They continue to charge ahead, but while they are sailing in separate conditions to the other boats, there is always a risk that the winds might favour the other team soon. On board Austrian Ocean Racing, powered by Team Geneva, after yesterday's break, they have now managed to fix the cable running through the luff of their masthead Code Zero, a sail that they will be relying heavily on for the remaining days of light winds and perhaps even chasing up to the leaders. Our VO65s and Amoccas continue to push on to Geneva, and this historic sailing city is ready to welcome them, not only from this leg, on this stage, but from their around the world journey.